what that position is, they'd be horrified by it. The same thing, by the way, is the case with B'nai B'rith, which has many chapters, and I've spoken to many of them. And on one occasion, when I was corresponding with the chapter president where I'd spoken, and this was after this attempt to silence me came about, he asked me, does B'nai B'rith have a position on immigration? Now, this is a chapter president of an organization. He didn't even know. And when I told him, he was horrified. So, what's really, as I say, the only word is appalling. What's really appalling is that these organizations will go to members of Congress or will go to Capitol Hill and they'll say, we are speaking for 300,000 members. Well, they're not speaking for anybody. They're speaking for a tiny, unelected board of people who run the organization. The membership does not even know what it stands for, let alone have they had, the least amount of input in the decision, or have they? No one has consulted them. No position's been arrived at democratically. These are, as I've described them, these are petty oligarchies, and they're also mostly plutocracies. These are small, little, elite leaderships, mostly comprised of the biggest donors, who tend to be disproportionately elitist liberal, and the members, who are usually lovely, ordinary people, don't have a clue. But yeah, it's had an effect. It's had an effect, and in the old days we would take out an ad, and I'd get zillions of calls. And now what I have to do is a lot of the legwork myself. I've got to get in touch with synagogues or Jewish organizations to get gigs. And so yes, I'm still getting speaking gigs, but they're harder to come by, and it's clear that the word is out that I'm quote unquote controversial, I guess is the kind word. And what's of course very strange about that is that all I am doing is expressing the views of the overwhelming majority of the American people. The people who are opposing me, in fact, are the rank outsiders, and yet they have somehow managed to persuade themselves and unfortunately persuade others that I somehow represent some kind of a strange, sinister force when I'm simply giving expression to the feelings of, first of all, a school of experts on the one hand, but also just the position of most ordinary Americans. And it's a very odd situation to be considered somehow outside the bounds when, in fact, it is they who are far outside the bounds in terms of the way these issues are apprehended by most people in the country.
What is Hadassah's position on immigration?
They support comprehensive immigration reform, which is to say shorthand for doubling legal immigration, for giving amnesty, and all the things that come with it. But the heart of comprehensive immigration reform isn't amnesty, although amnesty is a serious matter, but it really is the doubling of legal immigration. And given the way the immigration engine operates right now, that's going to mean, again, a lion's share of additional immigration from Mexico. And Robert Rector of the Heritage Foundation estimated that if comprehensive immigration reform were to pass, that would give us 66 to 100 million additional people from Mexico in the next 20 years. And which, by the way, Jews should understand, that would mean they would be outnumbered by Hispanics mostly. I mean, the term Hispanic is kind of meaningless. I mean, so I try not to use it very often, but by Mexican folks, 50 to 1. And of course, the political implications of that should be obvious even to the least literate political person. I mean, politicians understand how to count. They don't understand much else, but they know where votes come from, and that's where they're going to, they're going to use the line of whatever group happens to be the dominant good demographic, and if this policy is to go, what were to go forward in very short order, the country would become overwhelmingly Hispanic. You know, I'm not saying that's a bad thing per se, but I think people have to understand that's what it's going to be, and that for Jews who have their own allegiances and particular interests and so on, when you've got a group which has high levels of anti-Semitism, and Mexicans do, and which simply has other policy priorities. Let's say they had no particular animus towards Jews, but simply had a different set of policy priorities. That would also have an impact. So at a period of time when Israel, for example, I like to assume most American Jews still care about Israel, although, by the way, the survey findings we just did show that some 12.9%, I couldn't believe it, take no side in the Israeli-Palestinian issue, and throw in, I think, the 3 or so percent that support the Palestinians, and the percentage that don't know enough to care. You've got almost 20% of American Jews who are effectively non-supporters of Israel. It's really almost comical. But I mean, if you do support Israel, and most American Jews do, how can they imagine in their wildest dreams that American support or commitment in terms of foreign aid and military aid and so on and so forth would continue at anything like current levels when down the road Jews will become a powerless, tiny minority?
Has Gideon Aronoff, has he modified or changed his program with you, or has he welcomed the direct fight with you, or what's going on with Gideon, the president and CEO of the Hebrew Immigrant Society?
Well, Gideon Aronoff continues to damage, to wreak serious havoc on the interests of American Jews. He is now chair of the board of the National Immigration Forum, which is the leading lobby group in the country for open borders, immigration, and amnesty. So he actually is, as it were, the putative head of the most radical organization on this issue in the entire United States. And he is the man who is specializing now in bringing Somali immigrants into the United States. This is a country which is a hotbed of jihadism. Some 20 Somali Americans went off to fight jihad in Somalia, and a little Mogadishu is being created in Minneapolis, which is a place of crime and of Islamic fanaticism. And so that is what Gideon Aronoff's ongoing gift to the American Jewish community is. And this is a guy who, you know, in terms, look, I mean, you can't expect me to have a balanced view of him. I mean, the man, after all, did slander and libel me, and got away with it. And the fact is that it's a disgrace in terms of the integrity of the American Jewish establishment that someone could get away with doing something like that and not a voice would be raised. In fact, to the contrary, and other people chimed in so that the Anti-Defamation League defamed me based on absolutely no information. They did no independent research into these crazy charges. They never got in touch with my organization or me to hear our side. And Hadassah, the same. You know, they simply took politically motivated charges from a disgusting, corrupt organization, the Southern Poverty Law Center. By the way, the subject of exposés, not by conservatives, but by The Nation magazine, by Harper's, and by the hometown newspaper, the Montgomery Advertiser, which talks about it basically as a bloody money-making mill. I think they've had hired one black lawyer in their entire history. And of course, Hayes took this